All right, let's chat with Adam Carricker of the Carricker Chronicles. A big one this weekend. Nebraska, a 7-point favorite against Colorado. Before we talk about that, I understand it's UTEP, but were you pretty pleased to see how the team and especially Dylan Raiola looked on Saturday?
Yeah, a little bit of a slow start, but first game of the year, true freshman quarterback, and honestly, it really wasn't Dylan. The whole entire offense was just kind of a little clunky in the beginning. It was 7-7 after the first quarter. UTEP caught the defense on that 1-3 play, up-tempo, 60-yard drive, long touchdown pass. I mean, but the rest of the way, Nebraska looked how Nebraska should look. The offense settled in. We are clearly going to be able to throw the ball much more efficiently and effectively this year. Dylan ran the offense, took care of the ball, was efficient. What more could you ask of a true freshman quarterback in his first start? And honestly, the black shirts, they dominated the rest of the game. And before the end of the third quarter, Raiola was already out of the game.
Yeah. It's the way it's so hard to take stuff away from a week one opponent like UTEP, but you come away, you can feel really bad about how some things go. And so when you're not left with that bad feeling of oh my gosh, we couldn't even take care of this team. So, Colorado comes to town this week. We were talking about it before we started recording. Their passing attack is nuts, right? And there's a lot of questions around their offensive line. Can that give Shedeur time to get to those weapons? And they didn't. They looked better. I'll say their offensive line looked better this last week than it did in 2023. But they also were playing an FCS opponent, a really good FCS opponent. Not to disparage North Dakota State. Is that to you? Is that where the game comes down to? Is what kind of pressure can Nebraska get to make him a little less comfortable?
Yeah, to me, the game's going to be won and lost in the trenches. Okay, Colorado's offensive line was more efficient at protecting the quarterback. If you just look at sack numbers, North Dakota State only got to Shedeur once. I do believe the hits, knockdowns, and pressures was right around 1 million, though. Okay, roughly give or take. They were all over him. The rushing attack for Colorado, they averaged just over 2 yards per carry. They're not really interested in running the ball. They're not great at running the ball. North Dakota State is one of the best FCS programs in America, and it's been that way for a decade or more. So they weren't just going to be a pushover. They weren't going to be intimidated. But Colorado won that game because they are far superior athletically. Yeah. They have Jimmy Horn, if not one of the fastest players in America, maybe the fastest. You got Travis Hunter, who's probably a top 1, 2, or 3 pick. You got Shedeur, who's probably a top 10 to top 5 pick. Okay, so they've got great players. The question I have is about the rest of the team. The front seven, are you better? It was hard to tell versus North Dakota State. Their front seven on defense, the offensive line, it was hard to tell. You've got 3 great players, and I think about 19 question marks. They may be improved, they may not. It was hard to tell that first game, but 19 question marks in their other spots on that team. So they're going to come in wanting to throw the ball. Shedur's used to being under pressure. This is going to be nothing new to him. What was he sacked 52 times last year? Somebody told me. So he's used to getting rid of the ball under pressure. But if the black shirts can get there just a little bit faster than North Dakota State was able to, because I like to think the black shirts are a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic, with all due respect to North Dakota State, maybe some of those hits and pressures turn into sacks, knockdowns. Maybe not, because Shedeur is really good at getting the ball out. We'll see.
Yeah, I wonder about their offensive line for sure against a much better, you would think, front in Nebraska. They didn't look great. You mentioned all the question marks. They didn't look great defensively against an FCS school. Now, I will say they saw a very veteran quarterback there, and we'll try and give as much respect to North Dakota State as we can. Different story this time with a true freshman. How do you think they look to attack Colorado when Dylan Raiola is in the game and they're on offense?
I think in the beginning of the game, it might be similar to what you saw versus UTEP. They're going to run the ball, establish the run. It's going to be an insanely electric atmosphere. Let's calm the true freshmen down. Let's establish the running game. And then what they did early on was a lot of short passes, high completion percentage type passes. And then they eventually went to play action with a few passes over the top, which led to some touchdown passes for Nebraska in their first game versus UTEP. But I think you calm him down, you establish the run, you get him in a rhythm with some short completion, high percentage completion type passes, and then eventually you spread the defense out and go over the top if you're the Huskers.
You mentioned that electric atmosphere. I've already told my wife that I'm not traveling this weekend, but I kind of just want to book a flight to Lincoln and do it anyway, just to experience that on a game day. And then, obviously the circus that follows Coach Prime and that crew is, just kind of adds to that. So I am a little bit jealous of those that'll be up there. Slightly more confident in this game after seeing both teams week one. I know it's only 60 minutes of football, or slightly more concerned. Where do you kind of think you fall after watching, I guess, 60 minutes from both teams?
It's hard to tell what you're going to learn in one game. UTEP, they weren't very good last year. Okay, 3-9, got a brand new head coach, 11 Austin P transfers because that's where the head coach came from. So a lot of new first-year head coach. They weren't great. They're probably going to be one of the worst 15 to 20 teams in America until he can build that program up a little bit. That being said, all I wanted to feel after that game was that game went like it should, and that's how I felt after the Nebraska UTEP game. So you got to take that away as a positive. Colorado, North Dakota State, everybody under God's hot sun is like North Dakota State's going to come in here and they're going to fight, scratch, claw, tooth and nail. They're a physical team. They're not going to be a pushover. And that's exactly what happened. But man, it was hard to point to other areas of Colorado's team that were what's better from last year. I can't look at the front seven and the run stop in the run game and say it was better. The back seven, they gave up some long touchdown passes. The offensive line, are they a little better at pass protecting, or was North Dakota State, as good as those players are, just not quite fast enough to get there that split second sooner to get the actual sack? I don't know. It's crazy because Colorado, North Dakota State kind of went the way people expected, but there's more question marks for them than I think Nebraska. But I don't know what we truly learned. It's hard to tell. We'll learn a lot more this Saturday night.
Yeah, and just playing a little more equal competition on both sides. I thought that, I do think, I wonder what our perception would be if like that fluky interception to start because I did think Colorado's defense was better in the second half, or North Dakota State's offense was struggling. If not for that fluky interception, they go up 10 there, and then they scored again in the second half, and then they're up 17. Do they play that? Does it end up going a little bit differently? Like even the touchdown they gave up in the second half was kind of garbage time. It wasn't technically garbage time, but it looked like prevent. Like you're gonna have to score onside kick, score again to beat us, and they obviously only got the score. So, I know we're not quite to game day yet. Have you done a prediction yet? Where do you think this one falls?
I will actually have former Colorado Buffalo Matt McChesney on my show of the Character Chronicles tomorrow morning. And Matt's great. He was a team captain, 3-year starter, all Big 12 type performer. He's got a beard. He always wears sunglasses. He's got this big scruffy voice, and he's got tattoos all over. He's a former D lineman, so he's freaking nuts. And I'm going to send him a message. Like I've interviewed him before. We've got great respect between each other. Our sons actually, their teams, 8th grade football teams actually played against each other, which was how we actually met in person for the first time. And so we have great respect, but I'm going to text him. Let's have a little fun with this one. Okay, so long story short, I have not made my prediction just yet. I know Nebraska is about a touchdown favorite at home. That sounds about right to me at this moment in time. I will say this. You make some great points. In the second half, and Deion even talked about it after the game, I think when he was interviewed by ESPN, they made some adjustments and their defense did play better. You got to give them credit for that. You could also argue the game came down to the very last play. You could also point out that coming into that game, North Dakota State had actually won 6 of their last 7 games versus FBS opponents. So again, what did we learn? I don't know. We're going to learn a lot more this Saturday.
Yeah. Where can folks find that show? Where can they follow you and get more of your work?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is The Character Chronicles. You can also check out our website. We have a ton of phenomenal content providers from great shows out there on YouTube, writers as well at characterchronicles.com.
Awesome, man. Good luck this weekend. We'll be tuned in, and we're excited for it for sure.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.